edition of your breakfast show on Leadership Television inside Nigeria. Today is January 6, 2026, and of course, is our first edition in the year 2026. My name is Winifred Bebo, and here's wishing you a happy new year. Well, without wasting much time, let's go to newspaper review. And of course, as we normally do throughout last year, 2025, and even starting with this year, we'd like to flag off with Niger's most influential newspaper, Leadership. Let's go there. Leadership's leading story today says Tinubu orders Manhunt as terrorist kill 42 in Niger. Death toll in Yobe boat accident hits 29 burning months. The story is on page 29 of Leadership. Of course, incidentally, we have just two leading stories on the cover of Leadership today, this Monday, January 5, 2025, due to the wraparound on the paper. And of course, we also have that same wraparound in some of the papers we have for review today. The second leading story says, unpatriotic individuals seeking to frustrate new tax laws, Nigeria Revenue Service chair says. Nigeria Revenue Service, of course, which hitherto was a Federal Inland Revenue Service, which has transmuted to Nigeria Revenue Service. That is the wraparound advert we have on the papers, perhaps to throw light on this. And don't also forget that the Tax Reform Act also takes effect this January 1st with the new Nigeria Revenue Service in place. From the cover of Leadership, we move to page 3 of the paper where we have our stand. Today's stand is on the judiciary's integrity crisis. And it's taking some excerpts from that editorial. It says, when the Department of State Security raided the homes of judges in October 2016, arresting Supreme Court and High Court justices over corruption allegations, the operation ignited fierce national debate about due process and judicial independence. Nearly a decade later, the drama has faded. Still, the underlying crisis endures, now surfacing in a quieter yet equally damning form. Reports that 34 of the 62 nominees for Federal High Court judgeships were dropped after failing integrity screening. The National Judicial Council, NJC, has disputed this specific figure, clarifying that the screening took place at the level of the Federal Judicial Service Commission and that no final decisions have been made. This technical denial, however, does little to alter the fundamental reality it seeks to obscure. Now we'll take the stand inside today's stand. Of course, we move towards the end where the paper actually take the stand. Like I always mention, our stand is the editorial, the collective view of the paper for the day. And of course, synonymous with all other national newspapers and even international papers we have. It's a third, the NJC must continue to safeguard the integrity of the screening process. Public input should be structured, evidence-based, and isolated from partisan or malicious abuse. Clear standards for evaluating petitions must be established alongside due process protections that allow nominees to respond to allegations. Finally, a cultural shift within the judiciary is indispensable. Judges and lawyers must see themselves as custodians of the nation's conscience, not beneficiaries of privilege. Such transformation requires principled leadership from within the judiciary, reinforced by the vigilant engagement of civil society. We just take some excerpts from today's stand in Leadership, the judiciary's integrity crisis. From our stand, we move swiftly to the back page of Leadership, where we have more column with Joshua Ocheja. Today is writing on de-radicalization and fantasy. Radicalization and fantasy. Scholars have contested the concept of radicalization. There have been arguments for and against it. Some argue that radicalization is religious indoctrination, while others argue that it is a result of ignorance. He says religion is not a victim of mischief, and mischief sticks like glue. Sometimes its interpretation is skewed. Today's quote, what we have in place at the moment won't work. I predict that we'll struggle with Operation Safe Corridor for a while. There is already a debate around it in the public space. It's an attempt to fix what is not broken. There are many unanswered questions. Quotes from today's column, model column on the back page of Leadership, the radicalization. Why am I biting my feet? The radicalization and fantasy, coming from Joshua Ocheja. Before we leave the back page, let's quickly visit Ghana Must Go Ghana must go on the news. Kwankwaso, I'll only join any party if I'm offered presidential or VP ticket. And Ghana must go answered. Food is ready. Politics. Kwankwaso, over to you. You said you only join any other party if you are offered presidential or VP ticket. And Ghana must go is asking you, food is ready. Politics. Is that what you are playing? Is on that note we come to the end of the review of Leadership newspaper. For more, don't forget to log into the website of Leadership this Monday, the first edition of the year 2026, www.leadership.ng. Briefly, we move over to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is the Punch. Punch has the same wraparound on its cover today. NNPC subsidiaries debt balloons 70% to 30 trillion naira. Only 8 of 32 subsidiaries remain free of intercompany debt. NNPC owes units 20.5 trillion naira amid asset sales plan. Tinubu orders Manhunt as terrorists kill over 4. You log into the website of Punch, where the story continues on page 18 of the paper. And lastly, on the cover of the Punch newspaper, brace for anti-tax unrest and ROS test security agencies. That brings to a close the review of front headline stories on the Punch newspaper, and that is Blueprint. Blueprint says Tinubu orders Manhunt as terrorists kill 42 abduct scores in Niger. Bago urges calm airstrikes kill 23 fleeing bandits. Tax regime coming from Land Revenue Service. We move ahead to the next paper on our lineup, and that is National Economy. National Economy is a weekly business on its news. The second, small businesses. Oil market uncertain as geopolitics supply hikes threaten 2026. And main leading story on today's National Economy print, despite promises, Ajaokuta still remains idle as Tinubu marks 3 years. Despite promises, Ajaokuta still remains idle as Tinubu marks 3 years. Ajaokuta project 3 years into President Bola Tinubu's administration, Nigeria's most ambitious industrial project remains stalled. The Ajaokuta Steel Complex conceived nearly despite decades of investment, foreign arbitration, and policy reversals. Built in the late 1970s under Soviet guidance, the plant was completed in 1984. It has instead become a monument to aborted ambition. What people don't understand is that Ajaokuta was designed for a world that no longer exists, said engineer Michael Lighton. The blast furnaces, the cooking system, the energy assumptions, everything was built for cheap gas, stable power, and protected markets. You can restart machines, but you cannot restart time. The warning resonated with Aliko Dangote, who said in a viral video, Ajaokuta will never work, likening the plant to an abandoned Volkswagen trying to compete with a modern Kia. These are excerpts from the leading story on today's National Economy, a business newspaper. It says, despite promises, Ajaokuta still remains idle as Tinubu marks 3 years. Still on the cover of National Economy, 2026 budget, can it bridge Nigeria's wealth gap is a question you'll find answers to when you log into the website of The Nation. However, the story continues on page 21 of National Economy. From the cover, we move to the page 3 of the paper for the editorial. Today's editorial, or this week's editorial, is on Lagos and the return of garbage mountains. Lagos and the return of garbage mountains. Today's editorial on National Economy. Well, viewers, also soon we've come to the end of today's Inside Nigeria because time is no longer on our side. We apologize for bringing the program just a bit behind schedule. We're experiencing some technical glitches. But however, don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of these stories. Don't also forget to follow us and subscribe to all our social media handles for more news on the app. Thanks for joining us. My name is Winifred Bobo. Look forward to having you same time, same station for another fresh edition of Inside Nigeria.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast.